Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Josh and this is your stimulus check update for the second stimulus package for Sunday, August 16th. I hope everyone is having a good and safe Sunday so far. In this video, I'll be discussing both the first and second stimulus check, including with political pressure being amped up on both sides, will they finally be able to reach an agreement on the next relief package? I'll also be discussing the timeline of the second stimulus check, the $500 dependent payments, and then I'll be wrapping up this video by answering some of the comments and questions that I received in my previous video. But first, if you wouldn't mind real quickly liking this video, giving me a big thumbs up, it really just helps with the YouTube algorithm in terms of pushing this video out to other viewers like you, and hopefully helping other people like you as well. Okay, so I just wanted to start out this video by making a quick note for those of you guys who are still waiting for your additional $500 dependent economic impact payments. This includes people on Social Security benefits such as SSI and SSDI, veterans, and railroad retirees. Now, if you're in that group and you're still waiting for your $500 dependent credit, the IRS recently made a statement that you should fill out the non-filers tool on the IRS website to provide information on your child. Remember though, anyone who filed or plans to file either a 2018 or 2019 tax return should only file the tax return and not use this tool. Now, any beneficiary who misses the September 30th deadline will unfortunately need to wait all the way until next year to claim it as a credit on their 2020 federal income tax return. This is why I would say it's so important to go ahead and fill out the non-filers tool in order to receive your extra payment in a more timely manner. Now, the IRS notes that these catch-up dependent payments should be issued by mid-October, so that's very good news for those of you guys that are still waiting on your $500 dependent payment. Finally, you can also expect to receive your extra payment in the same form you received your initial economic impact payment. So, for example, if you receive your $1,200 stimulus payment through direct deposit, you should expect to receive the $500 dependent payment via direct deposit as well. Also, please remember, even if you don't usually file a tax return because you earn little or no income, make sure to fill out the non-filers tool by October 15th in order to receive your $1,200 stimulus payment. Otherwise, you'll have to wait all the way until you can file a tax return in 2020 to claim a $1,200 credit on your federal tax returns. I don't want to see anyone waiting any longer than they have to receive this money. Okay, moving right along to some second stimulus check and package updates. Even though talks have presumably stalled and a lot of hope is seemingly gone for passing of this thing, I am happy to at least see the two sides continue to pressure each other to continue on the talks. For example, Donald Trump recently tweeted out that he's ready to send money for state and local governments to save jobs, and that he also wants to send rental assistance payments to prevent evictions. Additionally, Trump has also mentioned that he's directed Steven Mnuchin to send direct payments to Americans in addition to more PPP aid for small businesses. The president said he wants to do all this, but the only reason he can't is because the Democrats are blocking the funds from going through. Now, this is obviously a very political move. You can call it brilliant, or you can call it all a lie. It all depends on which side of the political aisle you're on. Nevertheless, having this type of pressure put on the Democrats will certainly amp up the pressure on their side to get something done. Trump is essentially coming out and telling Americans, hey, you would have all this money and all this aid, but the Democrats are blocking all this money from falling into your lap. Those bad, horrible people. That's what Trump is saying here. And again, it all depends on which side of the political aisle you're on. President Trump also said he'd be willing to compromise and approve billions of dollars in funding for the U.S. Postal Service if Democrats make concessions on certain White House priorities. In the past, Trump has been a bit opposed to USPS funding because it would help universal mail-in voting, which he believes could possibly lead to voter fraud. This has been yet another heavily debated issue between the two sides, with some Republicans believing it could lead to voter fraud and others believing that it's a necessity for safety reasons. With that said, do you believe that universal mail-in voting should be allowed, or do you believe that we should only be able to vote via absentee ballot? Just to clarify, the difference between the two is that universal mail-in voting is where every resident of a state is sent a ballot in the mail, whereas an absentee ballot is where someone has to fill out some sort of an application explaining exactly why they won't be able to vote in person, and only then will they be able to vote by mail. Let me know your thoughts on that issue in the comment section below. Now, the Democrats are doing the exact same thing with Pelosi, just the other day breaking down how little Republicans are willing to spend. Pelosi showed the Democrats were wanting to spend $60 billion towards anti-hunger and food assistance programs compared to the $250,000 the Republicans are wanting to spend. Pelosi then showed the $100 billion that the Democrats wanted to spend towards anti-eviction and rent assistance programs compared to the $0 Republicans were wanting to spend, and so on and so forth. Both sides have been totally politicizing this whole stimulus package, all to get an upper hand on one another in the upcoming election. And again, depending on who you think is right here or who you think is wrong, most likely depends on which side of the political aisle you're on. Now, I try to call things down the middle as much as I can and choose not to pick sides. I've had some viewers call me a Democrat, with others calling me a Republican. Truthfully, I try to call all things down the middle and without bias. I certainly don't ever think that everything a certain politician says is the best, nor do I think everything a certain politician says is the worst either. Most of them have both their good qualities and their bad qualities, or at least the ones that I agree with on a personal or moral level. I feel that at the end of the day, even though Democrats think one way and Republicans think the other, the two sides need to come together, stop politicizing everything, and pass this bill. I'm not a fan of pointing fingers and blaming each other, but they do definitely need to continue negotiations at this point in time. And even though the Senate has gone home and won't be back in Washington until after Labor Day, they will still be on call in case a relief package is agreed on by the White House and House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. Now, it's been noted that Pelosi, Schumer, Mnuchin, and Meadows haven't even talked in over a week. So that's something that's not only disappointing, but also needs to change. It's my personal opinion that they will eventually get a bill passed, but it's hard to say exactly when. Now, with all the elections coming up in just a few months, much of the attention has been focused towards that, which is just unfortunate. With that said, being that the current economic situation will have a lot to do with who becomes elected, I do feel that a lot of pressure will be on our politicians to get something done. If not, there's going to be a lot of politicians losing their seats come November. They must get something done. The American people are counting on you to do something. Enough fooling around, enough pointing fingers, enough talk. Get something passed now. Okay, so at this point in time, I'm just going to give some quick updates on the first round of stimulus payments because unfortunately, like I've said time and time again, there are still millions of Americans who haven't even received their first stimulus payment yet. With that said, let me know in the comment section below if you received your first payment or if you're still waiting on your first stimulus payment. So, if you're one of the unlucky ones who are still waiting for your first payment, in the meantime, continue checking the payment portal on a daily basis. As long as you filed a tax return within the last 2 years, or started receiving Social Security benefits before 2020, then you do not need to take any action to receive your stimulus payment. Otherwise, if you haven't filed a tax return in the last 2 years, or if you started receiving Social Security benefits in 2020, then it is required that you fill out the non-filers tool in order to receive your payment. Please note, like I mentioned earlier in today's video, that you must fill out the non-filers tool by October 15th in order to receive your stimulus payment. Otherwise, unfortunately, you have to wait all the way until next year to claim a $1,200 credit on your federal tax return. I do not want to see anyone have their payment delayed any longer than what it has to be. Finally, if you have any questions about your first stimulus payment whatsoever, you can still always call the IRS at 1-800-919-9835. The only thing that I would advise is to try calling a little bit earlier in the day just to avoid those longer hold times. Also, you may have to call back a few different times to get a real IRS agent on the phone, so try to be patient in that regard. And one more thing, remember that the IRS has not forgotten about you. You're not alone. I know it's frustrating, but the IRS is still sending out more and more payments each and every week, so you will eventually receive your payment at some point in time. Okay, so at this point in time, I'm just going to answer some of the comments and questions that I received in my previous video. And if you have any other comments or questions for me, feel free to leave them in the comment section below. I do try to respond to as many comments and questions as I possibly can. And those comments and questions that I'm not able to respond to, I do try to pick some of the more popular ones to answer in the next video in video form. Okay, so without further ado, let me go ahead and jump into the first comment of today's video. And that comment is from Edward. Edward says, what if your bank account is closed because it was overdrawn? Alright, thank you so much for that question, Edward. So if you expected to receive your first stimulus payment via direct deposit in your bank account, but your bank account ended up getting closed, then what's going to happen is the IRS is going to attempt to directly deposit your payment into your account, but since your account is closed, the bank is going to end up rejecting your payment and they're going to send it back to the IRS. At that point in time, the IRS is going to have to reprocess your payment and send you a paper check instead. After they do so, they should also be updating the payment portal to let you know that you should be receiving a paper check in the mail instead. Now, this can take anywhere from a couple of weeks up to a couple of months from the timelines that I've seen, depending on a variety of factors. Now, at this point in time, I would just recommend that you check the payment portal to see if your status has been updated recently to the IRS sending you a check in the mail instead. Okay, moving right along to the next comment of today's video, which is from Amy Lee. Amy Lee says, when will we get the second check for the American people? Alright, thank you so much for that question, Amy Lee. And unfortunately, at this point in time, it's still unknown when we'll receive our second stimulus payment. Both the Republicans and the Democrats are fully on board with sending out another round of $1,200 stimulus payments to Americans. However, they still need to pass a bill in order for those payments to go out. Once the two sides can agree on a bipartisan bill, then those payments should begin to be sent out around 1 to 2 weeks after the bill passes. Now, if I were to guess, I would say at this point, we may end up passing a bill at some point in September, which will mean we will start seeing stimulus payments go out sometime either in September or possibly October. Obviously, I'd like to see them sooner than later, but that's entirely up to the politicians on how quickly they negotiate to get a deal done. Alright, so on that note, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this video. If you did enjoy the content in this video and you'd like to see more videos like it, please consider subscribing to my YouTube channel. It is completely free to do so, and it's a great support to me. Also, if you'd like to receive 2 free stocks from Webull, with the second free stock being valued all the way up to $1,400, please feel free to claim those 2 free stocks by clicking the link in the description box below. And until next time, I'll see you guys, and I hope you have a great day today.